The distinct until changed operator emits unique values from the source observable based on a comparison to the previously emitted value. Distinct until changed has a variety of use cases, from toning down saves or requests from user input to only updated values, to limiting the emissions of an application state selector. Distinct until changed is a powerful operator you will find yourself using quite frequently. Let's check out some examples to see how it works. We can start with a stream of numbers. Remember, the of operator just emits the values supplied in sequence, then completes. When we subscribe to this observable, all values we provided are emitted and logged to the console. Now, there are probably some scenarios where you want all values from the source, even if they are duplicate. But there are also plenty of others, such as user text input, where you really only are interested when the next emitted value is unique. This is where distinct until changed can come in handy. Let's go ahead and import distinct until changed from r27/operators to take a look at how it impacts our number stream. And we'll use the pipe method to add the distinct until changed operator to the numbers observable. By default, distinct until changed requires no parameters, so we'll just leave the arguments blank for now. When we save, we can see that the duplicate values which appear in a row are removed, leaving only one occurrence of each of our numbers. There's a couple other things I want to point out here before we go any further. The first is that distinct until changed only considers unique values based on the previous emission. So in this case, the second one or the second and third 3 will be removed because they appear in succession. But if we added a 3 to the end of the stream, it would be omitted since it's distinct based on the 5 that came before it. The second is, distinct until changed uses a triple equals comparison by default. So adding something like a string 1 here would omit both values. When we save, we can see the string 1 is omitted after the number 1. If you prefer a different comparison than a strict triple equals, you can provide a custom compare function, which we will take a look at here in a second. Let's actually take a look at a more real-world example to dive deeper into distinct until changed, and see one way you may be able to utilize it within your applications. For this, we're going to step back to our last example from the scan lesson. As a quick review, we have this user state that we are accumulating over time using the scan operator. We are then grabbing the name from that state using the map operator so we can display it. The issue is, although the name never changes, it's still being emitted each time the user state changes in any way. So when we run this example, we can see the name Brian logged 3 times, when in reality, we only need it once. Let's take a look at a couple different techniques we could use to remedy this using the distinct until changed operator. First, we will add it to the args.js/operators imports. Now, the first way we could solve this issue is by simply adding distinct until changed under the map operator. We know that map is emitting the current name of the user, so if the user name doesn't change from the last emitted value, it will not be emitted. When we save this, we can see Brian is only logged once now instead of 3 times. So, problem solved, right? Well, kind of. In this case, it doesn't really matter because the operations being performed by map, such as grabbing the name property, are very simple. But what if we were needing to do more resource-intensive operations on a property whenever it changed? We probably would want to figure out if the item had changed first at the beginning of the stream and stop it from being emitted right away, if not. Our first attempt may be to just move the distinct until changed operator above map. But when we run the example, we can see the name Brian is logged 3 times again. This is because even though the name isn't changing, the comparison is being done on the object as a whole, and this reference is changing on each emitted value. What we need to do is make a comparison based on the name property alone. To do this, distinct until changed accepts an argument for a comparer function, which receives the previous and current values. If this comparison returns true, the item will not be emitted. If it returns false, it will. So for our case, we just need to compare the previous item's name property to the current item. This works, but supplying this compare function is an awfully lot of typing when we are performing a simple comparison of a property on an object. Thankfully, ArcGIS has us covered with a helper operator for exactly this scenario called distinct until key changed. Let's go ahead and update our import to use distinct until key change rather than distinct until changed. Next, let's update our operator in the pipe method to distinct until key changed, and we can actually remove this compare function altogether. Distinct until key changed, as the name implies, accepts a string argument for the name of the property you wish to compare to determine whether to emit a new value. For our case, we can supply name for the name property. Now when we save, we can see this functions identically to our basic compare function, while cleaning up our code a bit. To recap, distinct until changed lets you ignore values emitted from the source observable if they are the same as the previously emitted value. If you need to perform a custom comparison, you can supply a custom compare function. Or, if you would like to compare based on an object property, you can use the distinct until key changed operator as a shortcut.